Having a boyfriend is embarrassing. Furthermore, having a boyfriend typically takes a hit on a woman's aura. By this point, most of us have come across this very popular Vogue article by Shantae Joseph. Is having a boyfriend embarrassing now? But you know, girly, this article blew up for a reason. And I feel like most of us know the reason why, deep down. Boyfriends are out of style right now and they won't come back until they start acting right, to quote directly. And also, it almost seems like now it's almost cringy to have a boyfriend publicly. And that's why women are starting to soft launch their man, you know, maybe like a hand on the steering wheel, back of their heads at the restaurant. It's sort of seen better to be on the low with your man because he's most likely to hurt you and, you know, treat you badly. And then you're just gonna end up feeling super embarrassed that you were ever public with this person. Okay, there are lots of points made in this article and there are lots of things I want to tackle as well because there are some things I do see a problem with. But in this video, we're going to be talking about, is it actually embarrassing to have our boyfriend, or are we just terrified to look stupid if it ends badly? Let's talk about why being in a relationship is all of a sudden seen as a threat to your image, and if it's actually embarrassing, or are we just scared? Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Hi, if you're new here, my name's Maryam, and on my channel we talk about all things girlhood. So that's all things self-love, becoming the best version of yourself, fashion, lifestyle, all things girlhood. If you aren't subscribed already, I would love for you to support my channel and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, because there are lots of important points in this video that I want to ensure are reaching as many women out there as possible, and you giving this video a thumbs up helps us achieve that. Let's start by talking about what the article is saying. Let's go through some main points it makes. And if you haven't read the article, I do recommend you read it. It's not too long. But if you haven't, I'm going to go through some of the main points she made. And after that, we're going to talk about what my thoughts are and conclude. She starts off with a very valid point in my eyes, and that's basically about how when you start following a content creator, a girl, for her content, say around mindset or music, fashion, lifestyle, etc., and then when this girl or this creator gets into a relationship, her content all of a sudden becomes boyfriendified. Let's use that as the word. It starts to be everything my boyfriend and I, come spend a day with my boyfriend and I. It becomes very boyfriendified. That's the word I'm gonna use. And while yes, we may argue that as creators we evolve and our content evolves with us, but I also understand how a follower or a consumer of the content would not be happy about that. So that's the first point she made. She finds it icky when a woman starts to make her content only around her boyfriend. And then she makes a point that a lot of girls also try to not show their relationships online because of evil eye, or some of them are just scared of being embarrassed by their man, so they just, you know, keep it very low key so you can't really see their faces. So, you know, protects their image if, say for example, something goes down south, it's easier to maneuver. The third point she makes in the article is that a lot of girls out there want to, you know, reap the benefits of being in a relationship but also not lose any clout that comes from, you know, being that single girl. It's basically like they're picking and choosing the good of being in a relationship and the good of being single, and then, you know, leaving out the negatives. It's basically when you want that independence but you also want the social capital that comes from being desired, because there is a specific aura a woman has when she's single, and I feel like we all know it. Like when I look back at my single era, I love the woman I was because I just knew who I was. I still know who I am, and I just did not accept anything less than that. And we honestly love that aura. It just bleeds out of a woman's energy and we can just sense it. We just know it's there when we see it. And then finally she talks about how boyfriends are generally out of style and how it takes a big hit on a woman's aura when we see that she's in a relationship. We're going to talk more about this later in the video, but I found it really hard reading about how people were basing how they felt about a woman based off her relationship status. You know what I mean? Like it's still being centered around the person she's with. Do you see what I mean? We'll expand more on that later in the video though. And now before we get into deep diving on the topics, I want to talk about the general sentiment online that I've seen as well, where women in relationships don't want to share their relationships for multiple reasons. I mean, yes, the reason of avoiding looking stupid when, you know, you get embarrassed by your man is valid, and I see why that can be the case. However, another reason I will say is that a lot of people that are happy and are in healthy relationships, they don't want to share their relationships because they don't want to get that energy of being labeled negative things by people who are overly critiquing their relationships. For example, right now in today's day and age, it seems like, or it feels like, everything is a red flag. Everything is the bare minimum. Everything is this, everything is that, everything is being labeled. And as someone who is, you know, happy in their relationship, it's so normal for them to want to protect themselves from that online or that external commentary. So a lot of the times, people in relationships will keep their relationships private because they just want to protect themselves and their partner from the outside noise. And that's why we always feel like happy people or happy relationships don't don't really exist because people aren't really talking about it because they want to protect it from, you know, all the policing of the relationship. And I honestly can see why that's the case, because of the way men have been acting recently, generally, you know, on dating apps or in person, you can see why people are overly critical of the way a man behaves, because the standard today is just not the same as it was a couple of years ago, or even more than that in my experience. And so the point I'm trying to make is that we've become super vigilant when it comes to critiquing a person's behavior, that when you are in a relationship, you just don't want that spotlight on you or your partner because it can be exhausting. Another reason I think this general sentiment exists of, you know, all men are trash is hetero fatalism. It's basically when you have that innate belief that all heterosexual relationships are doomed for failure. It's when all you do is look at, you know, all the failing relationships out there, and that becomes the reality in your mind, and that becomes a reality that you're living in your day-to-day, because your brain has something called an RAS, reticular activating system, and it filters out all the information in your environment to match with the belief you have in your head. And the third reason I think this general sentiment of boyfriends being embarrassing exists is because people or girls are genuinely afraid to look stupid. You know, when their boyfriends act in a certain way, cheat on them, do X, Y, or Z, they just don't want to deal with the aftermath, so they just keep their boyfriends on the low. And that's so valid. I fully see that, I fully understand that, because when you're going through a breakup or a negative experience, the last thing you want to have is outside people, outside eyes looking into your life and asking questions, you know, trying to suss out what's going on. That's the last thing you want. But I do have stronger thoughts on this I will talk about later in the video. Most people are embarrassed of being seen getting hurt. Like, they're embarrassed to be seen trying in love. People are too afraid to be seen trying, whether that's in relationships, whether that's the dream or the goal they have. They see trying as something to cringe over, as something to be embarrassed of. I don't want to try too hard with my content. I don't want to try too hard with this job or that. I don't want to try too hard to achieve XYZ or this or that, because I don't want to be seen in this vulnerable state. Because when you're trying, you're vulnerable, and it takes a certain kind of person with a certain kind of emotional intelligence to be able to try and to be able to put their ego aside, because they know that whatever they're doing, all the endeavors they're working on, does not define them. It doesn't. Their relationship status, what they're working on, their goals, it doesn't define them. It's something they're choosing to work on. The only person who is cringing, you know, when another person looks stupid is the person projecting. I feel so passionately about this because I just generally see most people just, you know, having this ick towards trying. I don't want to let people know I'm starting this channel. I don't want to let people know I'm starting this thing. I don't want to let X, Y, why? You're trying. Most people are too scared to even try. Okay, besties, now let's get into my favorite part of today's video, where we're gonna deep dive on the points we made in today's video. Is having a boyfriend embarrassing? My answer is yes and no, because it depends. It depends on a lot of things, and I want to start with the real issue, which is enmeshment versus independence. This is essentially where a girl starts to gradually lose her identity in a man. When you lose yourself for an external being or a thing, that in its own is an embarrassing thing to do, because why would you do that to yourself? Why would you dishonor and discredit yourself to that degree? Enmeshment is basically when your identity and your goals enmeshes with his. While yes, it's important to have shared goals as a couple, like when you want to be married, when you want to achieve certain milestones together, perhaps buying your first home together, while those things exist, yes, but when you lose everything about yourself just for another person, that's what we're talking about. For example, before her relationship, she was doing all the things self-love related, you know, going out, taking herself out, taking herself to get her nails done, taking herself shopping, doing all the things she did to show her self-love. But once she got into a relationship, all of that responsibility was put on her partner, and she stopped answering her own needs, her own call. And that's when you know that that self-love prior was performative, because true self-love doesn't die when you are in a relationship, because your relationship with yourself is evergreen. It should be with you forever. And so yes, it's embarrassing to have a boyfriend when you're gonna lose yourself in that relationship. We see it all the time. Self-care is so loud and pronounced when we're heartbroken, and yes, we need it more at that time. Our body, our soul just needs it more. But why does it gradually fade away and go away once we're in a relationship? There is a reason a single woman has so much aura. It's because she pours into herself. She prioritizes herself. So that aura is inevitable. But once you're in a relationship and once you let go of all of that, obviously it's going to be reflected in your aura. Obviously your friends are going to see that. Obviously it's just going to show up in the way you walk and the way you you talk. When you reject yourself, it's easy to see. Your aura, let's not get it twisted, is not dependent on the person you're with. It's about how you treat yourself. Because let's be very, very clear. You're not more of a woman when you are in a relationship, and you're not less of a woman when you're not. Your relationship status, extrinsic forces in general, like relationship status, job title, etc., etc., these things don't define you. What defines you is that you are an intentional creation of a perfect being, and that's it. Your worth comes from there, and that's why no one can take it away from you. So this whole narrative of labeling a woman with less aura just because she's in a relationship, just using that one thing as a blanket statement, is problematic, because no, her aura is not dependent on another being. It depends on how she's treating herself. Okay, now bestie, let's talk about this whole I hate all men narrative. Before we get into it, I get it. I fully get it. There are so many questionable things men partake in these days. I fully understand. But I will also tell you this as your virtual older sister. If you actually subscribe to the belief or the idea that all men are trash, there are no good men left out there, that is the reality that you're gonna have in your life. If you're okay with being single, that's fine. I'm so happy for you. If that's what you truly want, then that's amazing. But if you actually deeply desire a fulfilling relationship, if that's what your desire is, and you're living your life with this belief that all men are trash, then you're never going to be able to get to the point where you want to be, because you're blocking your own blessings with your own psychology. It's easy to look for a yellow car if all you're thinking about is a yellow car. What you look for, you find. And it's psychologically proven as well with our brain's RAS, reticular activating system. It's your brain's filter that filters your environment to match the beliefs you have. I was also guilty of this back in the day. I would reject a situation before it could reject me, and that was not bravery. That was just me being a coward. And I don't want that for you either. For example, when you reject all men before you can even put yourself in a position where you could be rejected. You see what I mean? It's, for example, when you say, oh, all men are trash, I don't want to try, because you're scared of being rejected. If it comes from a place of fear, it's a problem, because you should not be living your life from a place of fear. What you need to do and what you need to figure out is, do I want to live my life single, or do I want to live my life with another person? If the answer is you want to be single, then that's amazing. That narrative will serve you. That's fine. Some women actually thrive being single, and I love that for them. But if you truly want a heartful, a wholesome, an amazing relationship, if that's what you want, then the beliefs you carry must also reflect that. The beliefs you carry must allow that into your life. Be careful. Be wary of falling into the trap of rejecting a situation before it can reject you, because that, unfortunately, is a sign of low emotional intelligence. It's when you don't want to feel that negative feeling of being rejected, so you reject a situation first. It's calling all men trash, so you know you're the ones rejecting them, they're not the ones rejecting you. Because there are good men out there. If you believe it, you'll start to see it. If you truly believe it, you will start to see it. For you to truly believe it, you need to actually unfollow and stop consuming content that has that belief, because that's not going to help you at all. Because like I said earlier in the video, happy relationships exist, but they're just quiet because they don't want to have outside negative energy impacting theirs. A lot of happy relationships that I know, they're very silent. You would never know that this person is in a relationship because they're that quiet about it. And it's not that you have to be, but it's just a general behavior I see in happy couples. They're just often quiet about it. If you only consume men are trash content, your brain blocks out healthy love, because healthy love contradicts with the belief you have. Change the belief and change your reality. And let's talk about the magic of being single. You know, when I see a single woman, she's not settling. Being single directly communicates that you're not someone who settles, because no matter what level of attractiveness a woman is, there is always a man trying to get with her, whether you are aware of it or not. Some of you might say, no, actually, I don't think anyone really wants it. Well, girl, they're not telling you directly, but there always is. Being single and not settling is attractive. Being single and actively looking for a partner is also attractive. It's not desperate, it's not embarrassing to try. Because like I said earlier on, it's not embarrassing to try in love. It's not embarrassing to go after the things you want. You've just been brainwashed into thinking that everything has to be effortless, everything has to be cool. The only cool kind of success is the one that's overnight, that you don't have to put much work into. The one that just blows up overnight. The one that just happens happens out of the blue. Everything effortless is cool. Or anything else, oh no, awful. You've just been brainwashed to believe that. What's not cool and what is embarrassing is being desperate to look for a person and just settling because you just love the idea of being with someone. What's embarrassing is when you compromise your own values just for the sake of being with someone. That's what's embarrassing. It's not embarrassing to look for a partner. No, it's okay to try. What is embarrassing is when you compromise your own values just to be with someone. Just because you think you're running out of time, just because you think you're not going to find a partner by a certain age you had in mind. The power and the productivity of I'm focusing on me, that is intoxicating. It is such an amazing place to be. I was able to get to that level of self-love in my single era, which I also worked on whilst being in a relationship. Your single era, the high of your single era, the high vibration feelings you feel when you're single can also stay with you when you're in a relationship, as long as you don't reject yourself in the relationship, as long as you're still showing your self-love and the love language that you appreciate in the relationship. As long as you don't abandon yourself, that high vibe you feel when you're single will be with you even in a relationship. And it won't be embarrassing to be in that relationship because you know you're not compromising your own values. You're not changing who you are. You're not abandoning yourself to be with this person. You're there because you want to be there. And if you're feeling curious more about, you know, self-love and when it's performative, etc., etc., I do have another video about that on my channel. And I'm actually wearing the same top in that video too. I'll link it down below for you guys. And the last point I want to talk about is how fear is now being branded as empowerment. It's when we say, I won't post him because if he does me dirty, I will look stupid, and that's embarrassing. When it's from a place of fear, it's not empowerment. When you're afraid of what the other person will do to you and that's what's dictating your actions, that's not a place you want to be. It's totally fine not to want to post your partner. I particularly don't like to, but why are you doing it? What's your intention? No one out there will know that but you. Operating from a place of fear is never a good idea. You're just gonna attract more things in your life to be fearful about because that's your baseline, because that's the vibrations you're in. You're in fear, and so you're going to attract more fear. You need to operate from a place of abundance, a place of like, oh yeah, I'm in this relationship. If it works, cool. If it doesn't, that's fine. I tried and now I'm not settling, and that's amazing. I tried, it didn't work, and then I chose myself. What a beautiful story. There is nothing to be embarrassed about when you know you've chosen yourself and you know you've done the best thing for yourself. Never ever feel embarrassed to try, ever. If you want to love publicly, that's fine. True empowerment is, I will love publicly if that's what you want, because even if it ends, I'll always have me. It's never a loss if I still have myself. If you want to be private because that's just who you are, that's fine too. As long as you have yourself, it's always a happy ending. Because you know you're always going to get yourself out of the situations, the relationships that no longer serve you. And that's such a beautiful place to be with yourself. That level of self-trust is something you genuinely cannot buy. It's built. It's built every day in the mundane activities. It's built in the mundane, like, you know, making your bed every morning, working out when you say you'll work out. It's when you'll journal when you say you'll journal. It's in the mundane, in the repetitions every single day. That's where your self-trust is built. And when you have that, you can get yourself out of anything because you know your word holds value, holds weight. You know that when you say you're going to get yourself out of something, you will, because you do that every day. You do everything you say you're going to do. That's just who you are. Alright, angels, to conclude, love isn't embarrassing. Losing yourself is. It's when you neglect and reject yourself regardless of your relationship status. Because energy never lies and it becomes visible when you do. And finally, trying isn't cringe. Being too scared to try arguably is. Being on dating apps isn't cringe. Trying to find someone isn't cringe. Settling and lowering your standards is. What is cringe and what is embarrassing is settling out of the fear of being alone. And lastly, having a boyfriend isn't embarrassing. Abandoning your identity for one is. Honestly, you guys, I truly enjoyed filming today's video. I love you girlies so much. And if you aren't subscribed already, now would be a great time to support me and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy. I love you girlies so much. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
You go